This is fried rice. Fried rice is the first thing I learned to cook, for real. The chef in the restaurant where I learned was very, very, very demanding. It was not right for a long, long time. Nowadays, you go to a Chinese restaurant and this is considered almost like a throwaway dish. It's the cheap dish on the menu, it's the common dish, but it didn't used to be like that. Fried rice was actually only enjoyed on the festival days, the Chinese New Year, lunar, the Mid-Autumn Festival, because oil is something that's expensive and precious, and only now is so easy to come by. You could always get water for cooking, but oil was something expensive and reserved for special occasions. So a couple things in this video. Craig asked about knives. This is the standard Chinese knife, and it's a great actual utility knife. There's a reason behind the shape of the knife. This is a knife of a culture who's primarily subsisted on vegetarian food, on vegetables. This is not the knife that you use to like. The reason is because, okay, Chinese cooking also, it's not a style in a vacuum. It's developed to feed a lot of people easily and quickly. And thereby, you're going to chop dozens and dozens of heads of broccoli, and how do you move it? This is not only a knife, but it's also, it's its own, it's hard to do one-handed, but you can scoop big collections of vegetables. Okay, so I'll introduce you to the concept of, in French they call it the mise en place, literally stuff in place. So I have everything that I'm going to use, and it's in the state that I want it in for the next step. I've fried some, in Japanese they call this yuba, this is, in Chinese is fubao. It's literally tofu pocket. It's the skin of it's the skin that develops when they boil soy milk, and it's really fatty and delicious. It's tastier than regular tofu. I have some peas. They've already been blanched. They're ready to go. Everything's already cooked. This style is just going to come together in the wok, or the pan. The wok is a pan. It doesn't matter. Very quickly, and we're going to use very high heat to blend it very quickly. I have some sesame oil, which is only used as a flavoring, not to cook. It's already toasted, so you don't cook up with it on high heat. You use it at the very end. And it's actually important not to cook it. I think it's was carcinogenous. Yeah, Chinese chili oil, and I'll go over how to make this in another video. That's a great salty addition to your rice. We use Bragg's. My wife likes it a lot. And some, arugula, and that's maybe non-traditional, of course it is, but you're going to see what I do with it, and it's just what I happen to have in my house. The best rice to use is yesterday's rice. This sat in my fridge all night. You want to break it up. If you try and make fried rice with fresh rice, it's not going to go. It's so moist and sticky that it will stick to the pan, it will clump. We're trying to get a really great toasted flavor to the rice. And here's something else. Like I talked about ginger last time. I actually chopped this smaller because my main ingredient is small. In this style of cooking, you want to harmonize your ingredients in many ways, and size is just one of them. So my broccoli is much closer to the size of rice than what I used previously. So the yuba too, I've chopped it like, it's not obviously rice size, but it's not big long strips. There's the concept of harmonizing everything together. So this is going to happen faster than other things. So you have to plan it out in your mind. You have to know what comes first, which is oil, then ginger, and then you have to decide how your vegetables and rice goes. And generally, like a Chinese chef would just blanch these and the broccoli and put it in. But I just love the crispiness of it, so I'm going to use the pan that we talked about to get that extra toasted crispy flavor in there, but it has to happen very quickly. And I also know that once I put the rice in after it, it's going to continue to cook. So I'm not going to wait till it's done. And I'll show you how we add anything. We'll see if this works. All right, oil. Secret to fried rice is oil, a lot of oil. No secret. The more you use, the better. I mean, it's fried rice, you know. Ginger. So you're going to see this get brown much quicker than the larger sliced ginger. Okay. I really want you to see the brown on the ginger. Maybe harden this light. You have to be, this part I'm not patient with. I always want to throw the rest in. But if you let it get just, there it is. Let it get just a little brown. You can see it right there on the edge. That's just a great flavor to go in your food. Okay, so broccoli. Now, the technique we used with the broccoli last time actually can be used here or with the rice. If your rice is too dry, you want to help it steam a little bit at the same time. This rice is probably not, so I'm just going to avoid using the cover, but you can steam it for a second at the end too, just to retain some of the moisture. So you can see the broccoli change to that iridescent color. It's done. It's actually cooked. Time for the rice. Great. Now, I like to coat stuff in oil before I add salt. Why? Salt is actually, and I've been thinking about this a lot more, it's actually a method of preservation in cooking. Now, it probably doesn't make a ton of difference in something cooked this fast, but I don't want the salt degrading my ingredient. It's a corrosive, so on some level, it's changing the texture and the firmness of rice. So I coat it with a little protective layer of oil before I salt. So I stir things around, make sure it's nice and coated. Hopefully this will go smoothly. Okay, a little salt. You're going to use soy sauce too, but soy sauce is just a flavoring. You don't want to drown it. I want a nice crispy, crunchy rice situation. This is when you bring your heat up to everything you can apply to the pan. In the restaurants I learned in, the woks, they had literally 100,000 BTUs of energy. It was so hot. It was like 120 degrees to stand in front of it. So cooking at home takes a little longer. But you still want to maintain as much heat in there as you possibly can. You're going to get your best result. And you can see the rice, as you can see it, the sun's starting to get a little sheen on it. See the ginger is nicely mixed in. The broccoli, even though the broccoli now is not crisping, but it's still cooking because you're applying heat via the rice. Okay. So I can see usually I like to add a little oil somewhere in the middle, and you'll hear it. Frankie talked about biofeedback with food. Chefs, they hear, they smell, they taste. It's all biofeedback, and you can hear the change in the sizzle, and that tells me everything's going nicely. When you stir fry something that you're not actually when you're doing this, you want to be careful about attacking it with the spatula. This is what my wife does to rice and noodles. You're breaking it up. You're stirring it more than it needs to be. The purpose of stirring it around is to create an even cooking. So it depends on your ingredients. Some things need to be moved a lot. Some things need to be let to sit. I'm going to let it to sit, and it's going to absorb that wok flavor that we talked about. Okay, so it's actually good. Maybe a little more salt. Pepper is something you add later on in cooking. Anything more than 8 minutes with pepper, some pepper I ground earlier, it's going to create a bitterness. Pepper's an aromatic, so you know that's why they come around in Italian restaurants and put it on at the end. They use the heat of the pasta that's still emanating to lightly like toast and steam the freshly cracked pepper. Okay, so that's it. And let's add the rest of our ingredients. This is ready to go. And I'm hungry, and this is my lunch. See, we're getting very little stickage. That shows you're doing it probably right. You've got the right amount of oil. Your rice is has the right amount of moisture in it. If I was getting a lot of stickage, I would know that the rice was too wet, and I would want to cook it a little more. If I was getting none, I might. I'll show you what to do when if your rice is really dry. Use the same technique we talked about in the broccoli video, and you just shock it with a little, just like a hit. It's nothing, but if you stir the rice over it, you're gonna infuse it with some steam. So I hope that makes sense. In go the peas, which are already cooked. I'm not trying to cook them in the rice. They're already done. I'm just blending everything together. The yuba goes in. Now we're starting to have a big dish. This is really hard one-handed. Okay, extra yuba. Try not to make fried rice. It's not a joke. It goes everywhere. Okay. So now's when I put a little soy sauce in. I've created a really toasted, energy-packed ingredient here. Before I add, remember cooking with water. This is all, when you add soy sauce, you're going to be adding water. So you're cooking with water. I want the level of humidity or whatever, barometric water in the rice to be right where I want it before I add any more. I'm not going to use a lot. There's so many ways you can do this. Different parts of the culture like different amounts of soy sauce in their rice. In Cantonese cooking in Hong Kong, it's almost no soy sauce. It's really oily, salty, delicious, toasted flavor. I think in the north they use soy sauce more. There's a lot more wheat that grows there. Okay, so this is basically done, and now I'm going to